Assalamualaikum everyone. I hope you all are doing well. So today I thought I'll be sharing you some lessons regarding how do we deal with trade in Islam. So this information is actually from Mukhtasar al Quduri. So according to Hanafi Fiqh, Islam gives a very detailed guidance about business, buying, selling, honesty, and fairness in trade. So what is Tijara? Tijara, or we actually also call it as bay, means trade or sale. In Islam, trade means exchanging of wealth or goods with mutual agreement between two people. Both the buyer and seller must willingly agree to do the deal. So a forced sale is actually not valid unless the person later accepts it willingly. Now, sometimes we also deal with defects in good. So, what do we learn in relation to defects? So, if a seller hides a defect in an item and the buyer discovers, and later the buyer has the right to actually return the item back or keep it if they agree. This is called khiyar al aib. So, the option is due to defect. Islam teaches honesty in business and forbids deception. So, what are the modes of transaction which we can also do in Islam? So, in relation to either cash and credit sales, Islam actually allows both a cash sale and a credit sale. For a credit sale, the most important thing is that the payment date must be clearly defined. So, for example, if you're saying that, okay, if I'm going to give you a credit, the payment needs to be done after 30 days, or the payment should be done on a specific date. If the time is unknown, the sale becomes invalid because of uncertainty. Then, what's the option in related to late payments and penalties? So if someone delays payment, charging extra money as a penalty is actually not allowed. This actually falls under riba. So for example, if the sale is $100 today and if you pay it later it's 120, this type of sale is actually not permissible in Islam. So exchange of commodities and the way how you can exchange goods. So for example, in trade you can exchange goods. For example, you can exchange rice in replacement of wheat, or you can do exchange dates as barley. This is actually called barter trade. So there are other forms of trade as well. You can trade in dirhams, dinar, or actually dollars. So, unclear goods in sale is something which is really important as well. So, if the item is being sold, it needs to be clearly known. For example, one goat for $1. This can be an invalid sale because the goat is actually not specified or identified. So, for example, what's the color of the goat? What's the size of the goat? So, if there is uncertainty, this transaction is clearly not allowed. But for example, in a scenario, if it's a bulk sale, so if the goods is identified properly, then you can allow it, it's allowed in a bulk sale where you can say, okay, 100 goats for $100. So this is only valid if the goat is actually visible. All right. An important part is also deception in trade. Showing one item and delivering another item is actually not allowed. So the product must be shown, and what is promised is something which needs to be delivered. Honesty is one of the foundation of Islamic business. Then receiving less goods. So for example, if someone has bought 100 goods and they receive 90, the buyer can actually ask the remaining 10 goods or cancel the missing part of the deal. So Islam protects the right of both buyer and seller. And in a scenario of if you receive extra goods. So, for example, if the buyer receives more goods by mistake, the extra good still belongs to the seller. For example, an agreement was for 100 goods, but 110 goods were delivered accidentally. The buyer must return the extra goods once the mistake is known. So, these rulings in Islam actually encourages the honesty, clarity, fairness, and truth in business. Mukhtasar al Quduri teaches us the trade. It's not about profit, but it's also about justice and responsibility. Jazakallah khairan. Thank you, everyone.